these are weapons of mental dominance. These are the tools that your son or daughters are going to need at some point to battle the bricks. To battle the bricks. To battle the bricks. To battle the bricks. Right? These are four of the more popular ones. We don't mean to offend any people by putting this brick up, but when we put this brick up to the 13 to 16-year-olds and we ask them, hey, how much of this brick affects your performance? When they look around the room, they make sure mom and dad are in the back, and it's like, yep, okay? Man, I just cannot stand the fact that after every game, I've got to sit in a car with my dad on the way home, and I've got to go through every single inning and all the things that I could have or should have done, right? No one here has done that before, so we can certainly put that brick around. And those of you that enter that world at times, here's some good, real good advice. It's called a no chat zone. Tough to do. I violated it many times, okay? Right? Let them talk first. They're bummed out enough if their performance wasn't very good. I think we all realize that, right? So after you tell them how much you love them and how proud they were because they got so good in that uniform and they had a smile on their face and you're staying out of the results world, don't start analyzing the game until they're ready to do that, right? That becomes extremely important. When they want to talk to mom or dad about the at-bats, or maybe 2 hours later you can bring it up, hey son, you want to talk about the game? No, dad, I'm good for now. Then you need to respect that. Right? And if you tell them that at some point, let's talk about it, if you're really the super parent, you'll wait a day. Because then they're going to be more inclined to talk about maybe what happened. Whether it was something they did mechanically, their focus wasn't very good, they got disrupted by a teammate or whatever else. But the no chat time, when that game is over, leave it alone. And the problem we have sometimes in between games, some of you need to learn how to, and one of the E's here, engage and disengage, okay? You need to disengage once the game starts. That doesn't mean that you don't watch your son or daughter. It means that it's their time to go play, and it's your time to watch. And the problem we see over and over again, sometimes in our organization and others, is that between innings or between games, right, it becomes the, okay, all right, you know what? Okay, you know what? Coach is coming, let me just do this really quick, and there's your diarrhea of the mouth talking about all the mechanical things that might be accurate, but it's making the anxiety level of your son or daughter worse, right? And we're not saying you can't work with your children. Of course you can. Behind every good, really good player that's here, it's the mom or dad that's spending time either in the backyard or in the garage, getting the reps in, right? You guys got to be a big part of the process, but there's a time and a place for that. And we've all been to games where we've seen the parent that becomes the center of attention, right? We've all seen that before. We strongly recommend that if your son or daughter is pitching, you should not be in their eye lines, right? What does that mean? That means if I'm pitching and you're the catcher, it is in your son or daughter's best interest for you to be where? Get out, okay? Right behind the backstop, I'm not so convinced that makes sense for two reasons. A, it's distracting, and then you have parents that have this body language every time that it's not a strike. Well, your kid sees that, right? Or even when you're hitting, right? You don't need to be in their eye lines either. And as much as you want to be close to the action, if you're going to be that close to the action, you got to learn to just stand there with a smile on your face. And good, bad, or indifferent, your son or daughter looks over, man, my dad looks pretty cool right now. My dad is so proud of me. As compared to what we see at times where you don't even realize how devastating that look down, that body language, or that disgust look is affecting these children. It's extremely important. And those of you saying, well, that's not me. Yeah, it is you. Okay? Because if you need to be right behind home plate, you got a problem. Right? And I know sometimes you want to be close to the action. I'm telling you, for the good of the universe and your child, right, get away. And I know that's hard for the Little League age groups that are here. Right? In Little League, right, half the time the moms and the dads are in the dugouts and you're feeding the children. And we understand that, right? We understand the separation anxiety. They become 10 or 11, right? Walk over to your son when he's 14 in the dugout. See the look that you're going to get, okay? But at 9 or 10, they still love mommy to an extent. They want snacks. But even after that, get them the snack and disengage. right? And let the children play. And we're not gonna talk about jumping the coaches and all the things that should make common sense, but this is about if your son or daughter is always looking for you between swings or between innings, you got the beginning of a problem. Because they're more concerned about authenticating you and pleasing mom or dad than them playing. That's not a good sign. And as much as they want to please you more than you can imagine, right? For the hour and a half that they're playing, you got to keep reminding them and go play, right? Mom and dad are going to watch you play. You're going to have to trust your coaches, trust your teammates, and leave us alone for whatever the hour or so might be. But a lot of it gets back to learning to just leave them alone to an extent, okay? Mentioned before, and again, right, how do we get to the point that as parents, you really got to respect the other kids on the team? And this becomes a problem quietly, right? You're someplace shortstop, and secretly, not outwardly, but sometimes, you're rooting against that other kid on the team because if he doesn't do well, your kid's gonna play more, okay? That becomes very dangerous, and if that happens, you should do it internally. But if you're doing that in front of your child, you're becoming an enabler. You're becoming someone who's making excuses over and over again for your child. And we see this all the time. Don't worry about it, Noah. No, the coach doesn't know what he's talking about. The umpire sucks, and that kid's better than you. Don't worry about it. That becomes a big problem as they get older, doesn't it? Right? Because we're trying to teach them about being accountable, and there are some times in which other kids are better than them. And that's the reality of it. And we're not saying give up, but if you're outwardly, critically, over, killing the coach, killing the parent, killing the umpire, and almost to the point where your son or daughter hears you, and that kid's not nearly as good as my daughter, you're gonna become a problem, okay, for your own child. Because they might not even be thinking about that. Now all of a sudden, geez, my mom or dad is coming up with all these excuses. I'm gonna do the same thing also.